Right, I'm going to put the primary chain, clutch hub and basket and the front sprocket extension and the front sprocket basically. So just feed it through. Make sure that you don't get your belt snagged on the felt tensioner shoe. Right, next thing is you want your compensator set up on the front. I'm just putting a bit of lube on it. Just sort of line that up. Just give it a waggle, it just spreads that lube about. Right, next is the spring. I'm just going to put a bit of lube around where that contact's on. Right, now that just slips over the end of there, and then I want some Loctite, which I forgot. Right, on the big bolt on the front, you just want to put just a couple of little drops of high strength Loctite on, and then feed that in. And then the same on the nut on the clutch hub. Just a couple of little drops. You don't want massive amounts. And then remember, this is a left-hand thread. Right, I'll just knock you off for a minute. Right, what I've just done off camera is I took this nut back off and cleaned the thread locker off it. Reason being is I'm going to tighten this front sprocket bolt, and I'll shove my tool up in there until it locks. But I need my clutching put together so I can lock this up. So I needed the locking compound off there. So what I'll do is I'll tighten this front one up, and this torques up to like 165 foot-pound or 224 newton meters. So wrong way around. So get your tool locked in into your chain and then let it take up the pressure. Right, and that's that one tightened up. And just back it off. Pull your tool out. As I say, I'll take that one back off. Just to make sure there isn't any still left on it. I'll just put it on half a thread. And what I'll do is I'll get all the clutch plates and everything. We'll put the clutch pack together. And then basically we'll tighten this one up in the middle. Right, I'll knock you off for now. Right, we're going to install the clutch pack. Now, first thing you want to be putting in is the bottom ring. All the way. And then there's another ring goes in and it's beveled. Now basically you want it so that the high side is on the outside and the low side is on the middle. Let's get that all the way in. Right, and then the clutch plates, which I've had sat in oil. You've got a narrow clutch plate, friction plate, that goes in first. And make sure that goes all the way in, because it actually sits inside, or should I say on the outside, of the two rings that you've just put in. And there's the first of your steel plates. And then basically it just continues like that. You've got a friction plate. And a steel plate. Now I've also, underneath where the clutch is, I've put a drip tray, so that any oil that drips, it's not just dripping onto the floor. This is a new clutch pack. It's slightly upgraded. Right, and the next thing to go on is your retaining plate, and then the pressure plate, and then line up your bolting plate. It's not what they're called, that's what I'm calling them. Just start all your bolts in. And now I've lost my tools. Right, and just slowly, just equally wind them in, sort of do a cross pattern. So it takes up the pressure on the actual pressure plate. Clutch spring, and once you've got them all nipped up, these all torque up to 12 Newton meters. So I'll just adjust my torque wrench. Right, and that's your clutch pack in. So what we'll do now is I'll unscrew that middle nut and we'll put some Loctite on it again. and we'll wind that back on. Right. Torque wrench. I'll just knock you off for a minute because I seem to have put my locking tool back. Just be a sec. Right, got my locking tool back. I've adjusted my torque wrench. This nut gets torqued up to 80 foot-pound. Now also remember it's a left-hand thread, so you need to change the direction of your torque wrench. So I'll go in and so the chain's locked. Just give that a little bit extra as I do each time. And wiggle your locking tool out. Right, and what I'll do next, if you hear a drip, it's just the oil dropping into a drip tray under the engine. Right, what I'll do next, I'll just get the last of the clutch parts. Right, I've got the clutch adjustment plate and bolt and centre bit. I'm just going to put a little bit of lube in the cup in the end that goes inside, and it contacts the other end of that clutch rod that I put in from the other side. So I'll just put a bit of lube on that. And then push that in on your plate. It's got written out, obviously it faces outwards, and it's two locating lugs. Just push it in and then get your retaining ring, put a little bit of lube on that. Circlip pliers. Get it in place and then just check that it's in. Just wind your bolt out and then just turn if I've got an Allen key here, it'll fit that. Right, that's, I'll just give that a shove so everything's in place. Right, I'll just knock you off for a minute, get some tools. Right, back again. Just changed the battery in the camera. Right, clutch adjustment. We're gonna sort of temporarily set this middle bit, the adjuster screw. Right, the adjuster screw, if you just wind it in, just get the lock nut back, wind it in until it just lightly contacts. I'm just going to screw that in tight just to take up any free play that's in there, and wind it back. Right, just wind the centre in until it's just lightly contacts. Now it's contacting the rod and the other end where, you know, where I had the oil slinger on. That takes up any free play across that. Once it lightly contacts, just sort of turn it back half to one turn. So I'll set it, for now I'll set it at like 3/4 of a turn back. Once you've got that set to where you want it, hold the centre so it can't turn, and then just lock. Just lock it. Now, the way, I don't know if I've got any play on any movement on here. You can just see that movement in and out. Now, obviously, I've got the cable adjusted at the minute so that there's maximum free play in the cable. When I adjust it up, there'll be a lot more movement in there. But the way that these clutches work is when you pull your clutch lever in, it turns the like the clutch release mechanism at the other side, which on that ramp it showed it moving in and out. What it does, it pushes on this plate via this slot here. Yeah, it pushes on the plate and pushes. Right, this plate here, as you know, is the O-rings holding it into the pressure plate. It pushes the pressure plate out, which separates your clutch plates and your friction plates and your steel plates, so then it can turn without driving the main drive. Then obviously you're pushing it against your spring. Obviously when you let your clutch back out, the pressure on this spring, it's actually called a diaphragm spring if you want the technical name for it, that the pressure on that pushes the pressure plate back to close your plates back together tightly. Obviously this is just a spring retaining plate that holds your spring plate onto your pressure plate. Yeah, so when it's all up and running, that comes in and out to release the plates, or like when it goes back in, they go tight together, which gives you your drive. And it's a wet clutch system, which you've obviously figured out because it was covered in oil when I put the plates in. Yeah, so you've got your power. I don't know what you can see there. Just adjust this. We're going to adjust this in a second anyways. Yeah, you've got your power, comes from your engine, which turns this, well, makes that chain go around and turns the clutch basket. Now, that in turn, when the clutch is together, it turns the whole thing. When it's turning the whole thing, like the basket, if it runs freely, like your clutch is, you've got your clutch lever pulled in, it's turning your basket, but it's not turning the hub in the centre. The hub in the centre, obviously, as you know, you've watched it, it's connected to your main shaft of your gearbox. That then in turn goes through whatever gear you've selected, brings the power back through onto your fifth gear, which then locks that hub. Once you let your clutch out, it lets the drive through, so that whatever gear you're in, that's all locked up. It then drives your back wheel. So that's a quick beginner's guide to how a clutch works. Very basic guide. Right, what we need to do now is just take the slack up in this chain. So just lift your shoe up, Now, with it being a cold engine, you want sort of probably about 5/8 to 7/8 movement. I'll probably get a little bit more on that. Don't want too much because you don't want it too tight. It actually goes tighter when it's warmed up. Right, I'll just leave it at that for now. I'll double check it before I start it up and everything, but just to take the tension up for now. So you've got splines on this back plate, and you've got splines on the back of the bracket that holds your shoe. Now, when you get it set somewhere near and you tighten that up, it binds the splines together so that it can't move. Right, and that's pretty much it for the primary at the minute. As I say, once I've had it, once it's nearer to running, I'll take the slack up in my clutch cable, operate the clutch a few times just to bed everything in, like right through the system from the lever to here. Let the free play back on the cable, reset that, double check this so it's at the sort of right tension, and tighten that up properly. But until then, that's pretty much it for in there. So I'll just knock you off for now.